Hey guys, so I've just returned back from a real world range test of the Meepo Hurricane here in London. Just to give you an idea, so the manufacturer on AT suggests that the board is capable of anywhere between 31 and 44 miles range, depending on whether you're running ATs or streets. Now in my case, I'm running the stock 6-inch pneumatic tyres, and I'll tell you what, to rivel down, I achieved 24.6 miles. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, so the average temperature here in the UK at the moment is about 10 degrees. This was a fairly late in the day ride, so it got colder as I was riding out. I weigh about 75 kilos, 80 kilos, depending on the day of the week it is. My average speed, I'm a slow rider, admittedly. So I was doing about 18 miles an hour, I believe it was. And to give you an idea, the terrain was mostly flat. So the Hurricane is running a 12S4P battery. It's a little bit less than the Propel and I believe the Hadian. And yeah, I think the board, you know, it performs really well. So we've got the Relive here to give you sort of a rough idea of, you know, the route that I took. So what would I say to you about this particular board? So let's say the initial part of the ride, I still find it's got quite a snatchy acceleration curve. So it feels like when you got the power on or the brake on, it just seems to feather the speed that you seem to be doing, which isn't massively confidence inspiring if you're a new rider. Obviously I've been riding for some time now, but I'd still consider myself relative noob. Now, as far as the sort of voltage sag, what I noticed is from 100% down to 50%, it was quite slow to sort of discharge, or at least display the charge status on the remote. So I did about 10 miles with only 1 bar drop. So when I got to about halfway, which was the O2 in London, we were still showing pretty well charged. However, on the return journey, the board was quite quick to start dropping off, and it dropped off quite quickly. So unfortunately, I didn't actually make the entire return journey. So I got to the point where I finished at my street and I could see my house. The board just completely died. Now the voltage sag isn't too bad. There was plenty of punch even when it was quite low on power. I just started getting the remote vibrations to say there was obviously low voltage. The time between me getting my first warning, which was about I think it was about 23 miles in, it was very quick to go to nothing. So what essentially happened when I died is the board didn't randomly do it, but it basically put the anchors on, so it slowed the board down quite, dramatically, and then came to a complete halt. The board would not move again after that. It did seem to revert to push kick, which was good, so you could still move the board if you wanted to, but essentially it had nothing more to give. It had just completely died. Now at 24.6 miles, I mean, that's a respectable number. That's a good number for a board like this. We believe the Propel, the Endeavour here, is good for about 13, possibly more. I haven't done a true range test, but what I have done is I've taken it on 2 consecutive rides around 18 miles each, and they were probably a bit faster than I was riding today. So that's an interesting comparison, which is good. So how did the board hold up? How did it ride? Yeah, it felt really good. Again, it was stable at speed, or at least the speeds that I was going at. I had no indication that we were going to get any sort of speed wobbles or otherwise. The trucks all felt good. Yeah, I mean, the tyres have all held up all right. That one's looking a bit weird, but I think generally pretty good. Something that came up in conversation is fitting shed lights to these boards is a little bit awkward, because you've got countersunk bolts and this is obviously raised ahead, so that makes your lighting solutions a little bit more limited. Tonight what I did is I've just mounted them to the trucks directly, just using the rubber mount. that kind of worked. It wasn't terribly great for lighting throw. I actually, funnily enough, used the propel lights on my helmet to sort of illuminate the day. Yeah, so nothing really else to add. I mean, so unfortunately I managed to catch the motor guards on the concrete when I was taking some photographs. That's pretty common with some of these boats, but these boards. But you know, it shows that they're doing their job. If you do own one of these boards and you want to move it around, hold by the rear of the board, makes it nice and easy to hold. Yeah, I think today's range test has proven pretty good. What I'll probably do is I'll drop the Relive link at the bottom of in the description, so you can kind of see it yourself. It was about, I think, 3.5. So if you go back to my machine, I think, yeah, it was about 3 hours or so. So a fair old run. I didn't stop. There was a few photo opportunities, but I did half of the ride in one. I stopped off for, you know, a drink and just to chill for 20-30 minutes, and I ran into a buddy on the way back as well. But that was more or less constantly moving, so yeah, so it kind of gives you, there was no sort of stop start, let the ball cool down again, etc. Which actually reminds me on one other thing I was probably going to mention. Sorry to run you around like this, I will eventually start filming properly. The motors did get noticeably warm, as in I went to go grab them and I was like, oh, that's a bit toasty. Whereas in comparison, the Tramper is cold as ice, as is the Propel. I've not noticed their motors get particularly warm. So yeah, it's just something to bear in mind if you just, you're not wearing gloves or something and you go to grab it. You just need to be aware of that. Cool. So I might have a look through the video that I've taken this afternoon. We did a brake test as well, which was quite good. We found I found a quite a steep bridge that we have sort of locally. It was about, I think it must be about 30% incline or something on those lines. Something that if you were to walk up it, it's a struggle. This line locked really nicely. There is a YouTube video I have filmed of it, but I don't know if it's public at the moment. I need to have a look if it's any good or not. So yeah, more as I learn more about this board, I will sort of share it, show what might be quite cool about it. Maybe do some Insta360 work, and sort of show how the board actually works in for real world non-YouTube people. Cool. Right, with that in mind, it's coming up 9 o'clock. I'm absolutely exhausted after a solid afternoon's riding. Cool. Signing off.